Hey, Husker fans, welcome to another episode of the Husker Big Red podcast with Chris Peterson and Danny Gillette. As always, go Big Red. Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. My name is Chris Peterson, and joining me as always this morning is Danny Gillette, and we're back for another episode of our podcast after a really exciting weekend for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, really on a lot of different fronts. The men's basketball team getting the double bye going into the Big Ten tournament. The women's basketball team nearly knocking off Caitlin Clark to win the Big Ten championship, but a great run regardless. A Big Ten champion in the wrestling, Nash Hutchmaker, going to the national tournament, capping off a great story. So really was an exciting weekend. Danny, how are you doing on this Monday morning?
Good. I'm excited that I'm not going to have to watch basketball until Friday because that means the double bye for the men, and truly an incredible weekend for Nebraska athletics and what has been an impressive stretch here for the entire athletic department. And I'm doing good. It's I think it's going to be a fun March either way.
It is going to be a fun March, I think, for Nebraska basketball fans, and that kind of already got started, this past weekend. We're going to dive into that here in just a second. Before we do, please make sure that you guys hit like and subscribe to the channel here if you haven't already. It does a big favor to us, helps other Nebraska fans find our content. We are a website and a podcast designed for hardcore Husker fans. So if you like Nebraska sports, make sure you check out HuskerBigRed.com. Hit subscribe on this podcast so you don't miss any of our future content. But yeah, on Sunday, I guess let's start with the Nebraska men's basketball team going to Michigan. It was basically kind of a track meet there in the first half. Nebraska scored 50 points in the first half, slowed down a little bit. Keisei Tominaga absolutely went off, although the Michigan defense was not great. There was one play where Tominaga got the defensive rebound and literally dribbled the entire length of the floor without anybody even trying to guard him. So it's really bad for Michigan right now, but really great for Nebraska. 12-8, they finish in the Big Ten. They've got the number 3 seed, and that's after being picked 12th, in the preseason polls, it just reinforces again to me that Fred Hoiberg is absolutely the Big Ten Coach of the Year this year.
Yeah, and it's impressive with what he's been able to do the last 2 seasons in particular. We talked about this a little bit last week, but it's worth mentioning again. Over the last 2 transfer portal classes, he's managed to land Josiah Alik, Rink Mast, Juan Gary, Bryce Williams. And I get he's not part of the last 2 classes, but a guy like C.J. Wilcher. The point here being he's done really, really well in the transfer portal, and he knows how to build a team now suited for Big Ten play. I felt like the first couple seasons of Fred Hoiberg's tenure, he was just kind of trying to figure out, what roster worked best for this league. Now he's figured out a formula, and it's paying off really in a big way.
Yeah, he has always done well in the transfer portal. Even going back to his days at Iowa State, that's kind of what he was known for. And I think, he just understands how to find talent. He can identify talent really well. And you look at the other side. Michigan had a lot of transfers, starting as well, but they were not successful this season the way that people thought they were going to be. And I think, that's just an evaluation thing. It's one thing to recruit and to be able to get, highly ranked players, which Fred can do too. But he's just so good at finding talent. He really found a talent, in Janowski in Wisconsin. That kid's going to be an absolute star. And Fred Hoiberg is tremendous, I think, at finding those guys that are, in that top 100, 150 range, but that can play, maybe not even in the NBA, but professional basketball. And Nebraska's got a lot of those guys. Keisei is going to be a pro player, whether it's, in the NBA, the G League, or Japan or whatever. Brink Mass, I think you could say the same thing. Juwan Gary, Bryce Williams, I think all those guys, even C.J. Wilcher. C.J. Wilcher is going to play professional basketball somewhere. If you can, do the thing, rebound and shoot the three. There's a lot of professional leagues in Europe, so there's a lot of opportunities for these guys. But at the same time, most of those guys that I mentioned could come back next year. And if Fred can get these guys to, commit to this program again, which I think they're getting the NIL money, which helps, this could be more than just a 1-year thing. And it's, they've got it running for two solid seasons now. 16 wins last year, 22 wins this year. And it would be nice to see this program string together, 3-4 20-win seasons, which they haven't done since like the early 90s.
And they haven't finished above a 4th seed in the Big Ten ever. So that was certainly a big win on Sunday. And Michigan, they hung in there in the first half. The defense was not strong for Nebraska, but after sorting things out, they played a lot stronger in the second half, and then they just began to pull away. I mean, Michigan was hot from behind the arc early, but they just couldn't sustain it. And Josiah Alik, his play on the boards has been a lot better, and he's been a lot more aggressive in that area. And he also chipped in, I think it was 15 points. And coming into the game, Nebraska was 14-2 when Alik scored at least 6 points, and he scored 15, and Nebraska won. So that trend continued.
Yeah, he's been as good as any pickup in the transfer portal this year. But I mean, Tominaga, 12 of 17, 5 of 8 from 3, just really lights out. And that's the thing, is like, if he can play like this with all the other pieces around him, but if he can be that X factor as a scorer, like, this is a really dangerous team in the tournament. And John Rothstein, I don't know if you guys know him. He's a college basketball analyst on Twitter, and he's like, Keisei Tominaga is the guy to watch out, is someone that America could fall in love with in the next couple of weeks in March Madness. And you could definitely see that. I mean, he's got the flair. He makes incredible shots. He's an incredible shot maker. And, if Nebraska is going to make a run to the Sweet 16 or just win an NCAA tournament game, like, he's got to play well and be making some of those 3-pointers. So the fact that he, played really well on senior day and had another really good game, I feel really good about that. And yeah, they did a great job on the boards again. They have not lost a game this year, I believe, when they've won the rebounding margin. Now, maybe that's offensive rebounding margin. I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure, if Nebraska's won the rebounding margin this year, they're undefeated. So 32-24, kept the turnovers under 10. I mean, that's really Nebraska's formula. I mean, they hit a bunch of threes, and it was funny yesterday with Michigan, because like Doug McDaniel and Terrence Williams were shooting really well from 3, but their defense is just so bad. I mean, at one point in the first half, Nebraska was scoring 1.8 points per possession. I mean, that's almost like, that's giving up 2 points per possession, which is almost giving up a score every time. Like, 1 is the average. If you're above 1 scoring wise, you're doing pretty good. And Michigan they're really bad. But Nebraska, they took care of their business, and now they could see Michigan again potentially if you look at the Big Ten, tournament bracket. So Nebraska has what the double bye means for people that don't know. They get a double bye into the quarterfinal because it's a 14-team tournament and it's all a weird bracket. Michigan will play Penn State. The winner of that game plays Indiana, and then the winner of that game will play Nebraska. So Nebraska will play Indiana, Michigan, or Penn State to go to the Big Ten semifinals. And I
love all those matchups, honestly.
Yeah, Nebraska went undefeated against. I think they went 5-0, maybe 6-0 against those teams. I don't remember if they played. I think they played Penn State only once. So 5-0 this year against those squads. So you got to feel good about that as a Husker fan.
And Penn State was much of a challenge. And Indiana was a little bit of, well, I'm trying to remember because didn't Indiana give them a little bit of a challenge at home, and then Nebraska blew the doors off them at Assembly Hall?
Yeah, it was much more Nebraska controlled that one at Assembly Hall. And yeah, the first game against Indiana, the defense was not good in the first half, and but Nebraska rallied and was able to win in the second. So I mean,
that's right. Yeah,
and Indiana just beat Michigan State. I think they've won like 4 games in a row. So I mean, that's not going to be an easy matchup, but if one of those other teams, happens to get in there, I would feel pretty confident. It just would be awesome to actually make it to. I don't know if Nebraska in the Big Ten tournament, I don't know if they've ever made it to Saturday in a semifinal game.
I'm going to look that up, but I like all those matchups, and we actually might do a live stream maybe for a little bit on Friday just to talk with you guys and talk about the game. But, it's always exciting when you get to play March basketball, and I'm really looking forward to the NCAA tournament overall this year. And I think Nebraska is definitely going to be in it.
Oh, for sure. They're definitely going to be, and I'm interested to see where the brackets, have them. And I'm also, to transition over to the women's basketball team, I'm interested to see where the women, wind up in the selection show. They won't have theirs until obviously it's about the same time as the men, the NCAA tournament. So really, there's not a lot of women's basketball this week. A lot of them do their tournaments the week before, because this is coming up. This week is like the Big Ten, ACC, Big East, all is, championship week or whatever you call it. So, but truly a great run. I mean, Jazz Shelley set the Big Ten tournament record with 3-pointers. Alexis Markowski, I believe, set a Nebraska record for double doubles. and they had a 7 or 8 point lead against Iowa. They just couldn't finish it, but it's still going to be, I think, they came into this week as like an 8 or 9 seed. I feel like they're going to at least be up to like a 7 seed after this run.
And Markowski, I believe, made the All Big Ten tournament team, so that was exciting. I mean, you looked at the names on the roster, of course, headlined by Caitlin Clark, and that was probably one of the more deeper Big Ten tournament teams as far as the women are concerned. And, you know, both basketball programs have really done a good job of stabilizing and finding formulas that work. And shout out to Amy Williams for really kind of, because there were some points in the regular season where we weren't kind of sure about this team. It was tough to figure out their identity and where they were going to go, and they rallied in March and honestly in the second half of the season in particular.
Yeah, it's been ever really since they beat Iowa, but yeah, they had a bad loss at home. I can't remember who it was to, maybe Rutgers, I want to say, but I could be totally wrong on that. But there was a point where you're like, man, is this team going to make the tournament? And then they beat Michigan twice, and that second win over Michigan was really big. And they beat Caitlin Clark and Iowa at home. But man, it would have been nice to get. It's so hard in basketball. What I like about basketball, and some people get sick of like the Big Ten tournaments or the postseason tournaments, but it's like you get a chance to play for your regular season trophy. There's the postseason trophy, and then your NCAA tournament. So I mean, Nebraska was playing for a trophy yesterday, and really, if you think about it, that's the first time any basketball program in a long time. I mean, probably since the women played for the conference title 10 years ago, that this program, any basketball program, has played for an actual trophy. And so it was disappointing. There was one point, I think Logan Nisley may have had a 3-point attempt with like under a minute or two, like 2 minutes left. And they were up by 7 or 8 points. And I thought she was going to make it and, ended up rimming out. It might not have been her, but I just remember thinking like, man, it would have been nice to have those 3 points. I would have felt a lot better about it. And then Caitlin Clark, did what she does. She's incredible. And it is what it is, but it's going to be fun to watch this team. I hope that they can go on a run. I'd like to see Jazz Shelley play as many games as she can in this NCAA tournament because she really has been spectacular.
Yeah, both programs are going to be must-see TV, and especially the women's program. They really battled this season, and it's good to see them, get rewarded for their efforts, and it's good to see both programs kind of back on the national stage again. And that's definitely going to help with recruiting for both programs, and things are trending up in that direction for each program.
What's nice, is that Britt Prince will be coming in next year for Nebraska.
Yeah,
We talked about her.
She's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, she's not bad. And then what's nice about the Huskers too, they're losing Jazz Shelley and Darian White. Those are the two names. I think that's it. I'd have to double check, but and Darian White's been a really good defensive player off the bench, so they're going to need somebody to be that ball handler type. And but like Logan Nisley, I think is going to take a huge leap next year. She's been really clutch as a freshman. Markowski can come back for another season. Natalie Potts, obviously Big Ten Freshman of the Year. Is only going to continue to. I mean, her defense is incredible with her length and rebounding. So a lot to be excited about with both teams. And then it was a Big Ten. I know we got a lot of wrestling fans out there. Big Ten wrestling weekend, and Ridge Lovett, 149 pounds, has been ranked number 1 most of the year. Took care of business. Won the Big Ten championship. Was Michigan or Nebraska's only champion. He beat a Michigan wrestler in the final, Austin Gomez. 9 other guys, though, including him, made it to the national tournament. And one of those guys is someone who is near and dear to our heart, the polar bear, Nash Hutchmaker. After not wrestling for 3 years, loses 40 pounds, and it was the number 10 seed. And I think he took 5th or 6th. But at any rate, he's going to be at the NCAA wrestling tournament. And that, I think, is a pretty incredible story.
He makes it look so easy, doesn't he? Like he really does. He's just such a gifted athlete, and I think he's going to set a precedent for Nebraska football on the wrestling mats for years to come. I mean, I can't imagine Tyson Terry saying no to wrestling at the collegiate level. So, seeing the polar bear really excel at wrestling, I mean, it just shows what a good athlete he is, man. He really is so impressive.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that really truly is. The way he did it too, because he got a bye in the first round of consolation, so he had to win like 2 more matches, and both of these guys were ranked ahead of them, and he beat them like 7-1 and 9-0. I mean, so he just whipped their, behind. And so it's interesting to think about, what he would be able to do if he had wrestled, 200, if he never stopped wrestling, basically could this guy be, in the mix for a national championship, maybe, because he was a state champ. I mean, he was a dominant state champion wrestler in South Dakota, I believe. So,
Yeah.
it will be interesting to see with Tyson Terry too, because heavyweights aren't easy to find. I mean, it's not easy to find those, big wrestlers like that who can have, a ton of success. And that was obviously something Nebraska needed in this weight, this year. It was kind of a weight class didn't really have anybody that strong, and it's worked out really well for both sides. So kind of exciting for them. Penn State, I believe, did win the Big Ten championship. They're number one. They're probably going to win the NCAA championship. So congratulations to them. But Huskers still have a lot of guys going. So hopefully Ridge Lovett will be able to, rep up a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, he is also an impressive athlete. You talk about someone who is, completely dominant when he's at the top of his game, so to speak. I mean, he's really fun to watch. I love watching wrestling, and I'll be interested to see what he can do and what the team can do moving forward.
And so also, I mean, I've kind of touched on this a little bit, but going back to basketball, we should be getting some awards. I believe it's going to be coming up this week, Big Ten Player of the Year, Big Ten Coach of the Year, all that type of stuff. And I just, we've talked about this before, but Fred Hoiberg really, really needs to be Big Ten Coach of the Year. And I'm going to, I think Nebraska fans should riot if he's not, because, I mean, to go from 12th to 3rd to, have another 6-win improvement, to win 12 games, and just to do what this team has done. I mean, winning 6 of their last 7. I don't think there's, any other. I mean, Matt Painter and Purdue, like, they did what they were supposed to do this year, and Nebraska, exceeded expectations much
And
more than
honestly,
anybody
I don't
else.
think I don't think this is one of the better Purdue teams. I really don't. I mean,
I think they're beatable. I mean, we beat them. Nebraska beat them. That's why I'm sitting there. Nebraska can win the Big Ten championship, the tournament, like 100%. I believe that because, I mean, they've beaten all these. They beat. They didn't beat Illinois, but they should have beat Illinois. I mean, they were really right there. So I mean, if it's us
that
against,
non-foul call at the end of that game looms extremely large, because if we beat Illinois, it would have been a little bit of a shakeup in the Big Ten standings.
but that's who we're probably, if we make it to the semifinals, that's probably who we're looking at. And so that would be fun. That would be a fun matchup, and it would be really a great chance for Nebraska to improve their seed too. Not only would it be fun to see kind of where they can go and try to win a Big Ten championship. I mean, since they only have to win 3 games to make it happen, but if you could win this tournament or at least get to the championship game, because they do the selections the same day, I think you're probably looking at least a 7 seed if they make the finals, which I think is what the women are going to end up getting.
Yeah, I mean, and Illinois was just Terrence Shannon, I believe his name was just went lights out for Illinois when they played in Champaign. So, I mean, but yeah, Fred Hoiberg, undoubtedly Coach of the Year. When you look at how this class was, again, built a lot on the transfer portal, and this is something that Fred's always done, but when you have to keep building, your program year after year, and this year wasn't as bad as some other years, because we did bring a lot of returning pieces back, Juan Gary, Tominaga, guys like that, but still, I mean, Fred Hoiberg, in my mind, is undoubtedly Coach of the Year.
And it's interesting, people they look at Nebraska and they don't see them as having a great defensive team. But if you look at the Big Ten net efficiency, which was put out by Dylan Burkhart, which basically, so it tracks your point per possession for the entire season. So points per possession offensively, Nebraska ranked 6th in the Big Ten with 1.08 points per possession, which is really good. And then but defensively, 1.04 points per possession, which actually ranked 4th in the Big Ten. Only Michigan State, Maryland, and Rutgers were better than Nebraska defensively. I don't think that's something that people really realize about this team, is that they do defend very well. Sometimes, and it's gotten a lot better. The 3-point defense has gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
They do give up too many open looks at times, but it is what it is. Overall, though, I mean, this defense, they're up to, and you look at the Ken Palm rankings, they're 32nd in the Ken Palm overall, 43rd in adjusted offense, and 26th in adjusted defense. So Nebraska, by every metric, is a better defensive team than offensive team, and I think that says a lot about Fred Hoiberg and what he's been able to do these last couple of years.
And they've been much better on the glass as well. Even I was just watching Josiah Alik. His ability to rebound has gotten a lot better over the past couple games, and the team has done a much better job rebounding than even say the first half of the season. So I think that's a big credit to Hoiberg and his staff as well.
Checking the NET rankings here, Wisconsin's still 22. That's like insane to me.
Which I don't know why or how.
I don't know. They must have a bunch of strength of victory stuff, but Nebraska's up to 37 now. And I know that Kansas State actually got, so Kansas State is a quad one victory now because they upset, I think, Iowa State maybe over the weekend. So, yeah, I mean, you're looking at, Kansas State, Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin. That's like 4 quad one wins for Nebraska. So, and Northwestern too. Well, actually, that wasn't a quad one because that was at home. Sorry. But Northwestern's still a top 50 team. So, I think Nebraska's got a pretty interesting resume, and I haven't checked to see like if the Lenardi's put out his new projections because I trust him more than anybody else. I don't know about, I know there's a lot of brackets out there, but I still think that Lenardi does as good a job as anybody.
And there's no, bad losses on the resume either. So that also helps. And I don't know how Wisconsin is still ranked that high in, the net rankings, but I mean, it took them a while to get out of the top 25 overall. So I don't know.
Michigan State's 25th. So and they're like 18 and 13. So I don't know, man. I'm not sure about these NET rankings, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they haven't updated yet or something. I don't know. But yeah. So some of these rankings are a little bit questionable. But like you said, Lenardi is one of the good ones, and I'm just ready to get on my dancing shoes because I'm excited. I really am excited, and it's nice to kind of have a Nebraska sports team in addition to the volleyball, program, kind of really find their groove and find their way, especially as we wait for football season to start up again, which I think is coming. Let's see. I believe the schedule said, I'm looking at my calendar here, the 20.
I believe it's the 24th.
24th? Yeah.
I think that's so, yeah. So 13 days from spring practice. So yeah, we should probably we were going to do more position previews. So we should probably start doing that. Maybe we'll work on that more this week, but it's going to be fun. I mean, there's not a ton of like football stuff going on, but Isaiah McMorris, I believe, won a state championship this weekend. Nebraska football commit. Carter Nelson's team finished second. It was just came up short, but he had a hell of a weekend. We talked about that on the podcast on Saturday in our live chat. But Carter Nelson on Thursday and Friday, man, was having his own personal slam dunk competition. If Nebraska ever, if Matt Rule has the slam dunk competition again, please invite Carter Nelson because I think he might have been able to win it this year if he was in it, to be honest.
Or if for some reason the men's basketball team runs short on players like they did, what was it, 3 years or 4 years ago now?
Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah, they had the offensive tackle coming in.
Banks.
I forgot about that.
And was it Noah Vidral?
Yeah, I think so. It
was a quarterback there. Yeah. So if they ever run out of players for whatever reason, Carter Nelson, Jeremiah Charles, I mean, they could all play. McMorris.
Yeah, like I said, it'd be nice to have those guys, McMorris and Nelson, for spring practice. But I do love the fact that they, wanted to stick it out and play basketball. And I think there's, like I said, a lot of translatable, things to that. And with Carter Nelson, I mean, hitting a game-winning shot on Friday, like that definitely to me translates as, he's a guy who wants the ball. He wants the spotlight in Nebraska. I mean, even going back to the Polynesian Bowl when he was there, and I remember Steve Sipple, he made a comment on his podcast with Sean Callahan about like, we saw Carter Nelson there and he was making comments about winning championships. Like he's coming to Nebraska to win championships. So he's a very serious individual, very competitive. I mean, this guy's going to be special at Nebraska. So, I don't know, get your popcorn ready for the Carter Nelson, Dylan Raiola, Nebraska football experience because it's going to be a fun one, I think.
I'm ready for the Dylan Raiola, Jalen Lloyd, Malachi Coleman experience. That's
I'm
gonna
ready
be a
to
lot of fun.
experience. I'm ready to experience that on my Xbox when the new
Yeah.
video game comes out.
Let's see, 4 months from now, I think, because it's
They
always been
said
the second
July.
week of July.
Yeah, they said July, but I need a trailer soon. I mean, Chris Fowler keeps dropping nuggets, and
Well, they're gonna have like basically all of the announcers like Fowler, Jesse Palmer, and Kirk Herbstreit.
I wish they would have. I wish that they had the Fox guys. I wish Gus Johnson was on there.
He actually was the main announcer in Madden 11 back in the day, and it was fun because he brought his, authentic commentary to the game, and I love listening to him call a game. He gets so excited, and some of these announcers are so dry, but he is far from dry. He is just so fun to listen to.
I do like I do like Fowler. He does a good job. He did a good job, I thought, in like the Rose Bowl, like especially at the end. Like he doesn't talk too much. But yeah, Gus is my favorite. And maybe it's just because I'm a Big Ten guy and Fox is like the Big Ten network. But I beyond Gus, I do believe 100% that Joel Klatt is the best analyst in college football, like bar none. He is by far, I think, the most knowledgeable. Like, he actually takes the time. Like when I listen to Joel Klatt, I know that he knows these teams. Sometimes when I turn on ESPN and the crap they spew, I'm like, have you even watched these teams play? So, I mean, not always like Fowler and the guys that do the games, but some of the studio analysts from ESPN, they're terrible. And it's just because their job is so, they become such like clickbait artists, I guess, and they're trying to focus on such a wide range of teams. But I really respect Joe Klatt, and I love the Big Noon Kickoff, and I don't love the idea. I guess here's another thing I was reminded of: the Friday night football games. Don't love that at all. Don't love the Friday night football
No, I
game.
don't love that at all either, and
Leave it for
because
high
you're
school kids, man. It doesn't make sense.
and you're usually working, so you can't even watch the games a lot of the time when they're on.
Oh, I still watch them. I just have to stream them on my phone. It's really interesting is that I will be recording the high school game I'm watching because I take video of every play, and so I'll record the video with one phone, and then on my work phone I'll be streaming the Nebraska game. So
Didn't you watch the Louisiana Tech game on a plane or something? You were saying?
yeah, I was trying to, but internet Wi-Fi is a ripoff. So if that's my advice is just don't buy it. It's not worth it.
Really? Because I'm
Yeah.
thinking about going somewhere over the summer, and I was thinking about getting Wi-Fi, but it's like a little bit. It's a little bit more expensive.
I mean, I guess maybe I don't know. They probably don't recommend streaming football games on there. So, I don't know. But at any rate, it still seemed like it didn't work that well. That's my review of Delta Mobile Wi-Fi in your
I'm
plane.
actually
So
gonna probably take Delta this summer, but do they offer any in-flight snacks? Or because like
I think so. Yeah,
you have to
the
pay for
cookies.
premium snacks, and quite honestly, I'd rather starve.
They're not premium. Plus, you can bring your own snacks on the plane. Snakes on the plane too, but you can bring once you get into the airport, you do have to pay for. Actually, no, you can bring your own snacks from home. They don't. They don't. You in fact your entire 30-pound bag or whatever you can. It could be full of entirely food if you wanted it to be. Like if you feel like you don't need clothes or anything, just jam a bunch of snacks in there. You're fine.
I don't get people who get drunk before they go on a flight. I can't imagine anything worse than being drunk up in the air, like just flying. Like, no thanks.
I don't mind the cocktail in the air, but I hate flying. I hate traveling, to be honest. I really don't like traveling, so that's why I don't travel very much, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, it works out during the season because you just stay home, watch all the games, and yeah, those are your Nebraska notes.
Yeah, more Nebraska notes. Yeah, there we are. Included my review of Delta Wi-Fi. You always get some extra information with this podcast, so that's another reason why you guys should like and subscribe, so you don't miss any of this extra information. But at any rate, we're going to wrap it up there since we clearly have nothing else serious to talk about. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be back on Wednesday for another episode. Please check out HuskerBigRed.com so you can see all of our written works on the Huskers. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.